I would like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6:01 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Dr. Betty Bonner, Allison Lasan, Catherine Sells, Sheila Taylor, Michelle Alcateb, Dr. Stacy Barker, and Jenny Prosnick. I've asked board member Catherine Sells to lead us in prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come tonight to you just thankful for all that you provide for us. We ask that you make our schools be places of safety where students and educators thrive in an environment of learning, understanding, and mutual respect, and make wisdom guide those responsible for the well-being of our students and creating a space that is open to growth and knowledge and learning. I thank you for those that are in those classrooms, and I thank those that support those that are in those classrooms. I also want to thank you for those that are around this table tonight, and for one that will be leaving us tonight. I just pray that their journey will be a great one, that their time with us has been positive, and that we're going to miss them, but we welcome newness on this board or in this team, and we just thank you for all that you provide for us. And I just pray tonight that the decisions we make and that the discussions we have are honoring those in our community and our students tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
We will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071 and 074. The time is 6:03 p.m. We are back on the record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is now 6:15 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Next on our agenda is to consider action on items discussed in closed session. Up first is the personnel recommendation for the Chief Financial Officer. Ugh. Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Sells?
I would love to make that motion. I move that the board.
Second, Ms. Taylor? All those in favor? That's 7-0. Motion passes. Welcome to the family, Mr. Rare. Would you please join us up here on the dais so we can get a photograph so we can, A, prove that this happened, and B, would you like to introduce your guest? Public comments are next on the agenda, and we received no public comment speakers for this evening. So we will move on to item M, which is our discussion items. Next steps in the facilities assessment projects. Dr. Rapp.
Thank you, Madam Prosnick, members of the board. I was about to combine words there. I'm going to go ahead and ask the team that's going to help me with presenting tonight. Obviously, the cold weather is not going well with my words. I'm sorry about that. But this is going to be a collaborative presentation with all of us, and so we'll each take different parts of it throughout the time together. And I'll just start as they're making their way to their seats with an overview. You also have these slides in your folder as well as we go along, and so please feel free to use those to take notes on throughout our time together, because there will be, as Ms. Prosnick shared, a time for discussion at that time. All right, so let's recap where we've been in general. We know that in March of 2023, we came together on a Saturday to review projects from the facilities assessment document that told us about our infrastructure and facility needs. And really, we reviewed projects in the categories of general facility, we called life cycle maintenance and repair projects, athletic facilities and related projects, fine arts facilities and related projects, technology and safety and security. March 2023 seems like a lifetime ago almost now. Projects were presented according to priority codes at that time with the board, and then projects moved from that conversation on to the One Vision Task Force. And the One Vision Task Force met between the months of April and June, resulting in the recommendation to the board in August. And of course, you all called for the November 7 election, and we put the bond propositions and Vader on the November 7th ballot. And ultimately, we've talked about what passed in the November election related to our facilities was propositions B and C. So that takes care of 20-year maintenance, life cycle, and repair, safety and security projects, fine arts, classroom furniture, buses. The technology infrastructure was on Prop B, and of course, the devices for students and staff were on Proposition C. And then we also had playground shade structures and those enhanced accessibility playgrounds. What was not approved by the voters is highlighted for you in Props D, E, F, and G. And all of those propositions were projects related to athletics that we will talk further about this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason just to ground us back where we started that Saturday in March of 2023 about how the facilities assessment document tracks our needs when it comes to the projects that we're going to discuss tonight.
Okay. Board, as you're aware, the district utilizes the facilities assessment study to identify our facility needs and went for the bond. The overwhelming majority of the projects that we will discuss tonight are directly from that document. The document provides a comprehensive review using life cycle data, work order history, and visual evaluation, and is updated annually. And the life cycle data is very important, and so we've shown there that we gather our life cycle data from several sources, including industry standards, manufacturer recommendations, regulatory agencies, historical experience, and so on, as you can see there. And then on our next slide, we're just showing an example. You want to progress this slide one, Dr. Rapp? Oh, sorry. I got it. Thank you. And then again, this is just an example of the document. It shows all of the components that we are tracking. This is just Marcus High School. And again, you can see the myriad of different components and different buildings that are on that site that we are tracking and determining when the need should be given to you guys for decisions to move forward with.
So how do we know what we need, where we need it, and when we need it? We take that document, and over the course of the last 2 years, we've done a really good job of educating our building principals about that document to where it's not just always set on a shelf. Now it's being used through the facility walk, so we use that document. Facility review committees that we're continuing year after year, walking the building with the interested parties of that campus. Holding discussions with directors and coaches about what is needed, of course, taking into account safety of the equipment, lifespan of the equipment, equipment that hasn't made the necessary lifespan. There's always that fine balance between site-based decision, what they want versus what they need. And so that's filtered out through the athletic department as well. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit, and we'll have some pictures here about the campus footprint, about what's available, what land is available, what space is available, what can be done. And then, of course, parity between the schools using the ed specs for all new buildings. And just keep in mind that when we talk about parity, is we're trying to roll out the exact same programs across all 5 of those high school campuses and those middle school campuses. Doesn't necessarily mean they look exactly the same. So, that's kind of what we're looking at there.
Okay, and so there's a lot to celebrate from the 2017 bond when it comes to athletics. Now, these were part of the one big bond proposition back then. You can see Hebron High School, we have the multi-purpose indoor facility, new practice field, and tennis courts. Lewisville and the Colony both got a new football press box. Lewisville also got all the ancillary buildings around that stadium reworked. Colony also got indoor multi-purpose. It's under construction now. And then I won't go over everything on here, but we did all the turfs at the high schools. We did lots of middle school tracks. We did athletic building renovations at Lewisville High School and the Colony High School, and the track replacement at Marcus as well. So a lot to celebrate and a lot to thank the voters for back from 2017.
Okay, it's my turn. All right. So, student experience, that is one of the cornerstones that athletics falls under. And, I'm looking at what student experience is, and you guys know that because you helped create that cornerstone, but it's creating safe, engaging environments where students experience a sense of belonging, well-being, and are challenged by their learning environment opportunities. One of our performance objectives for us this year that Dr. Rapp and we talk about with our performance objectives is increasing the relevance, positivity, and collaboration of student experience to build community, belonging, and student ownership. One thing I pride myself with Lewisville ISD is the way we build community. And we'll talk about that with all of our facilities that we currently have and how unique we are with how we build our communities. So, with that being said, just to recap some things that we talked about in the spring, we provide 820 sport teams supported by over 350 coaches in Lewisville ISD, and that's high school and middle school. We also have over 13,000 athletes that participate in our extracurricular activities. And when you look at graduation rates, we're at 96.3 from last year. The state rate is 90, and I truly believe that education-based athletics is the foundation for good school districts and good communities and good schools. Kids want to be at school because they want to participate, and I think that we bring some of the best opportunities to the students in our district because we do very well in the state, and I'm about to show you that as well. Last spring when we did this presentation, we had to modify because we have 2 more state championships that we added to the tally. So we have 34 current team state champions in Lewisville ISD, and that is something that all of us today and every day should be proud of and remember, and that's why people move here. That's why people want to be here. It's common sense that, I don't want to say people move for whatever reason, but they move for a reason. And when kids and parents are looking at communities to move to, we have something on the table that brings families to our district. And so when you're on the global state stage all the time, when UIL says, here we are again, I love that compliment. I want him to say that about every couple of months, to be quite honest. So I'm just really proud of what we do. And so Dr. Rapp's going to talk about some of the priority codes.
So one of the things when we met that Saturday in March, we looked at when we talked about projects with you all, really we brought projects forward with the consideration of one of 3 reasons at that time on that Saturday. And we ended up adding a 4th priority code, and that 4th priority code was parity with surrounding districts. And so the projects that the One Vision Task Force studied when it comes to athletics fell into one of these 4 reason codes about why they were coming forward. It was either a critical maintenance, repair, life cycle replacement need with safety in mind. It was either a priority 2 that was addressing parity between campuses and or feeders or some different kind of life cycle maintenance need, or an enhanced accessibility and availability. And then 3 again was looking at parity as well. Those footprints impact. The accessibility is there. It may not look exactly the same because of the footprint being different for each school. And then priority 4, we talked about the competition that we face with school districts around us and the facilities that they provide for their students.
So let's take a look at our competition stadiums. We're one of the few districts that maintain 5. It's a blessing that our students on campus, our athletes, our individuals that use these stadiums have a home on their campus, whereas some of these districts that have these mega stadiums, every game is a road game. They have to load up every game. They don't get to practice in their facility. And so you can see there our stadiums. But if you look at this, our stadiums are more than just a football venue. You have ROTC competitions, track meets. LISD is home to the Goldsmith Relays, other district-level track meets, band performances, students, choir, soccer, and of course football. And I think I could even go on to say that our stadiums basically are our largest classrooms on campus. And they also function as our largest community gathering points in each of our communities across the district.
What I would reiterate, to Mr. Kosh's point, is just that when we were talking about projects related to our stadiums, that those projects were not to build new stadiums. And of course, we'll talk further about that in that category. But these projects that we're discussing this evening are to maintain the stadiums that we have based on the life cycle needs as determined by the facilities assessment document.
Thank you, Dr. Rapp. And I will add, too, that because we have 5 of lots of things, that it brings unique opportunities for us that we have to maintain, that a lot of school districts don't have the times 5 concept. So that's just a learning piece for a lot of people to realize when you look at different projects. But the athletics and recreation category, these are projects involving recreational facilities other than a gymnasium, playground, or play area. So Jason and Randy are going to talk about just the life cycle parts of that.
All right, the first projects that we're going to look at, these projects are the 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair projects, and these projects were identified using the assessment document. And if you will, an important item to remember is that as we were looking at these items within the facilities assessment document, they were items that were going to be due for repair or replacement within the next 5-year planning window that we were looking at that time. And so these were shown to be due at that time. As you can see, we provided here the age of those particular areas next to the item in question here. So the first one there is Lewisville High School boys track locker room, which was built in 2003, which makes it 21 years old. And again, this was originally the Marcus High School football locker room when they shared a stadium there at Goldsmith Stadium. And so that one is definitely due. Some critical items on there that need to be addressed, some HVAC items, some roofing and things like that. The next one on the list there is the Hebron High School field house, again built in 2003, at 21 years of age at this time. Same critical systems would be due for repair or replacement. Next is the Lewisville High School Kilo softball facilities. This is going to be the concessions and restrooms, the softball press box, and some other facilities right there located at that site that serve that softball field. And that was built in 2005, and so that's coming up on now at 19 years of age. And then last on that particular list is the Hebron High School baseball and softball facilities, built in 1999, making them 25 years of age. And that is the picture that I've shown there on the right. That's an example there. A lot of times when people think of high schools or really even middle schools, they'll think that, hey, there's one building out there, right? But then you look at a picture like this and you see, they're little cities. There's a lot of little buildings there. On this particular picture, you can see the 2010 field house there on the bottom right. We also have the baseball and softball press boxes you can see there next to the stands facing the fields. The concession and restroom building that serves those, and also, of course, the batting cages and a myriad of dugouts and storage buildings and things like that. So a lot of things that we're tracking that are in need of repair at this time, being the age that they are. Then also, another life cycle building component replacement, which is even hard for me to believe, is the Colony High School turf replacement. Again, we were looking at a 5-year planning window when we were developing these projects that showed up on our facilities assessment document as being 5 years old now. Best case we've seen for turf outside in UVs is basically 8 to 10 years. And so, another 5 years from now, we're looking at 10-year-old turf. And so that would be a decision we need to make on whether we wanted to put that forward as well. But it will be a need coming up in the next 5 years.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase some different pictures that you may have not seen. We tried to pinpoint some trouble areas in a lot of our facilities that are not as global, just to be more specific. So the two pictures that you see up here from the LHS softball complex, and one of that is the dugout. And we do have this issue in some of our other facilities, but if it rains, if we water, there's some flooding issues in the dugout that seems real consistent after we met with our baseball and softball coaches about just some of the needs. And also on the right is exposed electrical wiring, and it's just in various areas in the dugouts, batting cages. There's just some different exposed wiring and electrical things that with that 20-year life cycle replacement, those are definitely some of the specific pinpoint things that we're looking at, just to give you a better idea of what exactly we talk about. It's not just a coat of paint or whatever, so just being more specific. These are two pictures of the Hebron field house. On the left is where they store their shoulder pads, their helmets, all of their safety equipment is in a non-climate controlled area. The gate that comes down, I mean, there's air that comes through there, heat, cold. So all of the things that we try to recondition, reuse, all of the safety equipment that Hebron football is using is being exposed to the elements, whether it's hot or cold. And so that's definitely a concern as far as when we're trying to help replenish equipment. And then on the picture on the right is just some possible termite damage, plumbing areas and leaks. We've had several pictures of water leaks and some of the finishes in the field house that need to be upgraded. But I chose these two specific pictures just to give you like I said, more specific look at just a very simple part of the field house and the life cycle replacements that we're looking at.
All right, the next projects we're going to be looking at, these life cycle building component replacements were also identified within the assessment document. This one is on the baseball and softball field lighting. You can see here, again, typically we will see lighting fixtures last approximately 20 years, and then the actual poles and bases, we can get 30 years out of those typically when we review those. And so, as you can see on this list, all of the campuses listed here, other than Flower Mound and Hemarcus, will all be in excess of 20 years old within that planning window that I mentioned. And so we also, at that time, said, hey, there's so many more benefits to an LED change-out project that we added Marcus and Flower Mound on the list for just the fixtures themselves. And you can see the benefits of the LED lighting. We put some bullets there at the bottom. Not only are you going to get, of course, your energy savings, but you have significantly better lighting when you change these fixtures out that would, exceed or meet the UIL recommended light levels for safe play. Instant on and off is a huge safety item. Metal halide, HID lighting, when it goes off, it takes some time for it to warm back up and come back on. And HID lighting as it is, that's the current lighting we have there now. As soon as you install the lamp, that's the best lighting that you have, and it instantly starts to degrade over time significantly. LED lighting keeps 70% of its life and brightness throughout its entire life of use. And so that's a big bonus. They last 3 to 5 times longer than total hours of use. And so that means that we have much less maintenance that we have to do. And maintenance on light poles is very difficult. You have to get on your lift. You have to schedule it. It has to be dry. If not, you have to drag protection onto the fields or make ruts, which are not popular. And so not only that, and then everybody knows about the energy savings that you get from that, up to 75% less energy than the current HID lighting. And so we certainly put this one forward before for your review.
Sorry.
Okay, another set of projects also identified in the assessment document were tracks. And so the tracks we're looking at here, these are tracks not inside of a stadium. These are typically middle school tracks. A couple of them there are at the 9-10 centers. And so you can see here All of these tracks listed, Briar Hill, Downing, Forestwood, Lamar, Harmon, Killow, and Shadow Ridge, are all going to be within their time frame for replacement per their life cycle. And so a lot of those are going to be 20 years or older. Asphalt tracks we typically get 20 years out of. Synthetic tracks, surfaces, we typically get only 10 years out of those. And so you can see those here, and you can see we've provided some pictures here of what happens as they age. Of course, asphalt cracks, and so definitely have to do repairs on that over time. But at 20 years, it just gets to where it really does need to be have a more major renovation, if you will. And then we have also showed Forestwood. Dr. Rabb, I don't know if you'd like to talk more about Forestwood's track, but it's a little different than the rest.
We are actively seeking through the projects that were brought forward to improve the Forestwood Middle School track. And as we can see from that picture there, I do not understand why there is a forest on the Forestwood track, but there is, and that does not seem to be acceptable. And so we appreciated y'all's support in including this project with the One Vision Task Force, and we still believe that the forest on the Forestwood track needs to be addressed. So we're keeping this project in the list.
A little more details about the LHS Harmon track. It's not used for high school track. This facility is used for sub-varsity competitions, the football field, whether it's soccer practice or middle school games. But when it was originally built, it had the synthetic track on there, and so our proposal is to replace this track, which is up, and as Jason said, a 10-year life cycle on the synthetic, which we're at that point or even beyond, but to go back with an asphalt replacement here. Once again, it's not used by the LHS track team. It is used mainly by the PE classes there or possibly soccer teams that practice there.
One thing I might add, you can see that picture there. So this is 13 years on a 10-year life cycle product. And so you can see that synthetic track surface is starting to wear through, and you're actually starting to see the asphalt base below that surface already. And so the life cycles are there for a reason. I mean, they are what they are. You could certainly still run on that track, but it's definitely past its useful life as far as the synthetic surfacing is concerned.
All right, along the lines of resurfacing are our tennis courts. Flower Mound, Marcus, and the Colony have courts that need to be resurfaced, and Jason can add to this, but life cycle is, all of these are relatively between 2012 and 2014. The Colony fencing, 1994 is the last time that has been updated, and we have taken some pictures. The Flower Mound tennis area, that, yes, it rained, but the pictures just show, because of the resurfacing that it needs, it holds water. That's an aerial view of the Colony tennis court that looks really good from the air. We're going to deep dive into the next slide to show some of the specifics, but it's showing you the fencing and the things that are around there. And Marcus High School tennis, that is after the rain dries. You can see the watermarks and the things that are left once we have some rain. Those are the issues that get exposed when it's time to resurface. All of these pictures are from the Colony. You can see where there is somewhat of a San Andreas fault there in between the two sides of the court, and some lift on some of the playing surfaces. But in my opinion, it's probably one of our most in dire need of resurfacing and fencing that we have in our district. So that's why there's a little bit more attention to that facility. Jason, do you want to add anything on just the life cycle of tennis court resurfacing?
Sure. I'm not sure I can add a whole lot. You know, we have typically a life cycle of 10 years on the resurfacing. Of course, we don't have to change the slab. The slabs typically last forever unless something crazy happens, right? But the surfacing itself, we try to get 10 years out of it. You can see what happens as we go beyond that. So all of these are right around that 10-year, and actually most of them have just passed the 10-year mark, with the Colony, I think, being at 11 years, yes, done last in 2013. So you can see the types of items that start to occur when you surpass the life cycle that is recommended.
All right, continuing on with the athletics and recreation life cycle, component replacements, the new locker rooms at Flower Mound Baseball and Softball, new locker room at Marcus Baseball, and we'll also talk about Lewisville High School baseball concession and the possibility of renovated restrooms. This picture was brought up, in our first presentation. It's really not a locker room. It's one of their storage facilities. I do want to add on our participation numbers, we do that data so that we all know how many kids we have participating. And with Flower Mound baseball and Marcus baseball, they have the highest participation. Marcus has 75 kids that played baseball last year with no active dressing area. Flower Mound baseball was 61. They're the two most participated teams. Everyone else is right there in that ballpark, but they're the highest. In softball, Flower Mound softball is 41, which is almost double the other numbers. Maybe he's keeping too many kids, but whatever. I mean, that's just he's got a lot of girls playing. So, just to give you an idea of the numbers that we're talking about in the space. And another critical component that I want to talk about with locker rooms is safety. When we have weather, and we have weather in the spring in our baseball and softball events, our fastest way at Flower Mound High School to get people out of the stands is to try to get everybody over to the main campus we have no place to take them in bad weather. That it has to go to the campus. Same with Marcus. They're going to buses. There's not a whole lot of areas to filtrate people, and so I just want that to be brought to everyone's attention that it's nice to have a restroom and a locker room and a locker to put your backpack in, but the other big picture of having these opportunities to have these buildings is for events that we have, because they're not connected to the campus or in close proximity to an indoor facility or something like that some of our other campuses have. All right, next one is
A little more detailed slides on the LHS baseball concession stand. I believe it's original with the field from many years ago. As you can see there, it's very narrow. It serves the purpose well. It has a lot of customers at all the home games. Very narrow. The electrical capacity is very stressed in this because it has been piecemealed together over the years. And so, you have to juggle running a microwave or running a pot of coffee or having the refrigerator going or the air conditioning unit. So, and also because of the location of it on the campus, it is at a low spot, and so it does retain water at times. And then, of course, it's not climate controlled. And Jason, you can speak more about the electrical capacity there, which exists.
Yes, it's definitely challenged. It is challenged. You can see there, the picture kind of speaks for the dated age of that particular building. It's not up to the standard that we have at the other campuses as far as its construction.
And so for the athletics and recreation category, we're looking at $28.9 million to address all those items that were just talked about and discussed.
all right. The next category are the Natatoriums Aquatic Center category. These projects are for the East and West Side Aquatic Centers. First, I would like to talk about, thank you. So who uses our aquatic centers? They're pretty much, someone's swimming, I feel like, 48 hours a day. We serve so many different groups of people, which is fantastic. We have been the flagship district for not only this area, but the state when we built the West Side Pool, and we have the East Side Pool as well. And so we host several different big-time groups, and I've listed number one, second grade swimming. That's a big-time group. There's a lot of those little guys swimming around in there, so that's a big-time group. We also actually have our own high school swim and dive and water polo teams, so that's a big-time group that's successful. But here are the events that we host yearly that bring lots of good revenue for our district, by the way, and we want to keep these groups coming because it really showcases what we do in LISD at the international level, the national level, and the state level. So we don't say, hey, we would love to host regional swim, dive, and water polo. UIL says, hey, we want you to host regional swim, dive, water polo. And then we say, yes, absolutely. So it is a gift that they ask our district to host these events. And so we are proud of that gift, and we want to maintain the excellence of the state level that we serve. So we host those events. We have Texas Age Group Club Championships, Paralympic Championships, artistic swimming. In case you don't know what that is synchronized swimming. I looked that up. I was like, so just in case you want to know the technical term. USA Swimming, International Swimming League, college championships, some of the conference championships, we host those. Western Zone Championships from the California area come to swim in our pools. USA Water Polo men's and women's national teams come to compete. And FINA is the International Water Polo Group, and actually found a lot of the different logos. The ISL, a couple of years ago, they came, and I felt like it was not like the Hunger Games, but I mean, it was fancy, like the lights and it was just a whole different level of competition that was pretty cool to have in our pool. That was a lot different than any other regular competitions that we have. So those are some of the, if anybody wants to know, so who all swims in our pools, this is a big, extensive list of people and groups. Let's see. And Jason's going to take that one. Yep.
Okay, so looking at our two aquatic centers that the district has, we are coming upon a 20-year need for life cycle maintenance and repair of the East Side Aquatic Center, which was built back in 2006, making it 18 years of age. There's some critical systems in that particular facility that will definitely need to be addressed pretty soon. I've listed those there in red, so they kind of stand out. But the fire suppression system, roofing system, the pool filtration system is a huge sand filter, which they don't really even do anymore on the newer style pools. They typically will do a DE style or something like that, a large, different kind of pool filtration, which we would look at upon replacement. The HVAC pool heating, I'm going to show you a picture on the next slide that we're going to discuss, is a very complex system. It's not like your normal HVAC on any other building. It actually uses the system to heat the water and do the air temperature together. And so it's a little more complex. And the way they work together, the pool, you always want the pool warmer, and then you want the air a little bit cooler for comfort, right? And so with water temperatures at typically 80 degrees-ish, it's not comfortable when you're 80 degrees on the deck. And so they to get the best energy savings, they use that system to balance those two, being the water temperature and the air temperature, to make it as comfortable as possible for a humid pool environment, if you will. And so those systems are definitely at the end of their life. I mean, at the East Side Aquatic, the main deck drawn units is what they call that system that we have there. It's definitely at the end of its life, and will need some significant work very soon. And then we have some additional items on there that we typically address that are life cycle items as well at that pool. I've noted just a few of those: flooring, doors and casework, scoreboard, which Coach Lyles will talk about in a few minutes, starting platforms, locker room renovations. And then over at the west side, which we built in 2014, over at the east side, that pool is actually a plaster pool. And so that was one of the critical items I failed to mention a second ago. That is also going to be in need of some big repairs and potentially replacement in some areas. At the west side pool, that pool is actually a stainless pool. And if some of you were here, you remember it actually shipped, I think, from Italy on a boat and was put together on site, called a Murtha pool. Supposed to be very fast water, you will. But that pool actually has a liner in it, and one of the liners on the small pool is actually due for replacement because I think early on it actually had some staining done to that particular pool liner from some chemical mishaps that occurred. There's also a bulkhead. The bulkhead is what you can use in the pool to move and change the lane lengths. Needs some serious work that we're recommending. And again, the video scoreboard, Coach Lyles will talk about on this slide. It's not working. Progressing one. Okay, so before she talks about the scoreboard, I just provided a couple of pictures here. You can see the east side pool there. Very nice pool. Again, almost 20 years old at this point, but still a very nice facility. What you don't see are the critical systems that really need to be addressed at that pool. And so what you don't see in that picture is what's shown in the picture on the right. And so if you look on the right, you can see that is the two Dectron units serving that pool. That is a truck outside the back of that. And you can see that truck is smaller than those units. That ductwork right there, you could almost just walk through it. It's so large. Big stainless ductwork that runs through the building. And so it's massive equipment that when it goes down, it's a serious issue. And when it ages out, it definitely has to be addressed, or you basically lose the building and lose the ability to use that building.
So on the scoreboards, these scoreboards are at both East and West Side Aquatic Center. And what has come to light in a big way is, number one, we run the world of water polo, just so that everybody know that we host every game possible, every playoff game. Everybody's swimming and competing in our pools at both of them. And the scoreboard does not fit water polo life, I guess is the best way to say that, because we have made it fit the scoreboard on time, the period, how many timeouts, the score. And so when you first go to a water polo game like we did as athletic directors, we're looking at the scoreboard and we're like trying not to act like we don't know what we're seeing, but acting like we know what we're seeing and trying to read, like, what is the score? What does that 4 mean? So we had to do some processing in our minds of like, okay, there's the time. Okay, there's the score. Okay, I guess those are the timeouts. Like it just doesn't, it's not user friendly. So it may fit some of the needs of some of our swim meets, but as we are growing as the water polo world champions gurus, it's something that we need to have to showcase both of those activities and sports. So just to give you an idea.
So the total aquatic center category is $16.25 million, and those cover the east side and the west side, and the maintenance, life cycle repair, and then the scoreboards that we're needing to continue to be the epicenter and the host for all those things that North Texas and the state of Texas look for us to be.
All right, so the next part is stadiums category, and I will say and reiterate what Dr. Rapp said. We are not talking about new stadiums. They're not included in these projects. These are all repairs and maintenance and improvements to our existing buildings. So the stadiums category are the projects involving stadiums with a seating capacity of more than 1,000 spectators. Our football stadiums, on average, are around 9,000 per stadium is our capacity, just so in case you're wondering. And Jason's going to talk about our stadium life cycle repairs.
Okay.
Oh, and I need to push the button.
Please.
There you
All
go.
right, as we talk about stadiums, again, these particular stadium buildings that serve the stadium were identified on our facilities assessment document. Those buildings in particular are the press box, concessions, and restrooms that serve the stadium. You can see there they were built back in 2003, so we got 21 years of hard use out of those particular facilities. The same thing at Hebron, built at the exact same time. Press box, concession, restrooms, all of these are aging. Their systems are aging, especially the HVAC systems, roofing systems will need to be, definitely the critical items will need to be addressed in some way. And then, yeah.
Let me just chime in real quick. The price that you see there, just so everybody's aware, is not tearing down that press box and building a new one like we did at Lewisville and the Colony. This is to renovate what's there currently.
Right. Thanks, Randy. And then we also show new LED lighting at all the 5 high school stadiums. And we talked about the benefits there. Many of those are at their life cycle, being beyond their 20-year period, and all of the benefits, I think that we're long past due, trying to get some LED lighting on these athletic facilities. There's just so many benefits, it's hard not to want to do that one, or propose that one at least, so.
All right.
Yeah.
Just showcases what they are, I guess.
So yeah, this is just outlining. You can see some overheads that we had made for the task force back when we were presenting to them, and showed some of the buildings. You can even see the Hebron Field House shows up on the one on the left, and then of course the concessions press box, and the visitor side, and then over at the Flower Mound you can see just the areas we're talking about that would be touched by that renovation that we're proposing.
I want to add just some true stories about LED lighting. I've been in the athletic office as an assistant and now the director of athletics for 14 years, and we have instances where we're in playoff games or we're in football games and we've got 8,000 people at a football game, and maybe a rodent, maybe something has ate the wires, and so half the stadium lights go out. And we've got facility guys running around trying to figure out what's going on, and we've got a lot of people in that stadium, and it's, we're trying to figure out what to do and also get a game going on. We've had several softball, baseball, where the lights shut off, and then we've got weather, and it just adds a lot of chaos and stress, and just a lot of people working really hard to try to keep the game going, try to keep everybody not panicked. So I just wanted to add some true stories about, LED light seems fancy and fun, but it really is truly something that it's nice when we go somewhere and play and the lights go out and they can just go, oh, sorry, here we go, and 3 minutes later we're back on. So I just wanted to add that.
A little more information about the life cycle of building component replacements. When you talk about our stadiums, the community sees the track that's laid around the outside of that, and they also see the scoreboard. And there's nothing more frustrating to parents or to visiting teams or even home teams is when the scoreboard ceases to work. And it can be a huge disadvantage to our student athletes as well. And so you're looking at scoreboard replacements, and we're not talking about the video component, the video scoreboards. We're talking about the traditional scoreboards, much like what you see now, but upgrading the components inside of there so that it's more efficient, more accurate, easier to connect through the press box and the wiring, and it's just updated. Track replacements, like they said earlier, the Marcus track is the newest one in our district and has been replaced, and you can see the years there on that. Picture there on the right, you can see the patchwork done on the tracks. And once again, we enjoy hosting the Goldsmith Relays. That's a traditional classic event that many like to come to participate in LISD. LISD will always be the biggest district in our competition district, so we would always like to host track meets, and it's going to be very difficult to continue to host those track meets, those district track meets, those regional track meets with our tracks that need to be patched and repaired like that.
I'd also like to add on the tracks that in the next couple of years they've changed the indoor exchange zones, but they are going to be NFHS is they. NFHS is the governing body that makes the rules for UIL to follow in all the various sports, and they're going to be changing the exchange zones for our outdoor tracks, and so resurfacing them and getting the exchange zones would be the optimal pairing if that was to happen, because we're going to have to repaint those exchange zones to manage the rules that we have to follow under NFHS. But this is the Colony scoreboard. I know that I've probably seen most of you at a lot of our football games, and just this is one example of a poltergeist type effect that happened. We had some blinking numbers shooting out. Some of the main common problems with our scoreboard is that we have a scroller at the top that's underneath where those sponsors are, and the lighting is very dim, and half the time it's not working, and so it's the lesser of two evils. We're going to try to get as much power we can to the time, the score, the down and distance, and timeouts, and so we had to phase out some of the scrolling sponsorships that people pay for to be on that scroller. And so just to give you an idea of how that works sometimes. And so we've had to try to figure out the importance of what needs to be up there and what doesn't, and explain that to people that want to sponsor our programs is a challenge.
So the total for the stadiums category is $20 million. And once again, this is not for a new stadium. This is mainly for the life cycle repair and replacement of our facilities for our current athletes so that we can continue to host and not be at a disadvantage.
All right, so we're moving on to the additional project considerations. These are athletic projects that were part of the One Vision Task Force recommendation in June of 2023, but were not included in the November 2023 propositions. So we're going to take a look at these considerations, and Randy Fite will start.
Okay, so yeah, some of the things that we had presented to the One Vision Task Force were converting baseball fields to synthetic turf, as well as the softball fields, and then taking the 3 fields that are currently used for the middle school competition games at Shadow Ridge Griffin and LHS Harmon, excuse me, and turning those into synthetic turf as well.
Okay, so I've got some pictures that are going to bring this more into more example-like to understand, but we're also looking at the practice fields possibly being turfed at each of the 5 campuses, not the indoor that was on the prop, but turfing one of our practice fields at the 5 campuses, and the indoor facilities that we do currently have at LHS and the Colony, of doing some replacement maintenance things that are needed in those 2 indoor facilities. The biggest thing, and Jason, you can add to that, but the biggest thing that I see with the practice fields that can be turfed is the accessibility for a lot of programs to use that area. And we'll talk more about that. But with LHS and the Colony indoor, it's the heaters, it's the HVAC. Those facilities were 1995.
Yes.
And then I have pictures to talk about that here in a minute. But Jason, if you want to add to this slide.
Sure. As you mentioned, the unit heater replacement that heats that facility, those are getting really, really old and aged. The actual turf that's installed in both of those is not the original turf, but it's turf that's beyond 15 years of age, and so it's definitely due for replacement. And then the roofing as well, the metal roofing, is going to be beyond 30 years, and so it'll be at its life cycle as well.
Okay, so these are pictures of the LHS and the Colony indoor facilities, and we've listed when the turf was replaced and the HVAC systems. These are places that are accessible for a lot of different programs. There's just definitely some things that life cycle wise that needs to be looked at and redone if possible.
Let me chime in there real quick. So when
Yes.
we say HVAC systems, it's important to remember those are not air conditioned, and so they have some exhaust fans, excuse me, and unit heaters. That's all they have. So when we were looking at doing a brand new 100-yard indoor multipurpose, we were going to air condition those. It was going to be a space that was cool. So just wanted to make that clarification for these.
Yes, thank you. When we talk about baseball and softball turf, we have visited with our coaches about the needs of their fields currently with dirt, mowing, irrigation, fertilization, maintenance, upkeep. It's a lot for 10 fields. It's a lot for our facilities. We have to constantly tell our baseball and softball coaches that our maintenance and facility guys are not just baseball, softball maintenance, like they have other jobs around the district. Their job is the entire district, and so they want to hog them a little bit during the season. And we do have some beautiful grass fields, there's no doubt, but with that, it costs a lot to keep them maintained, the laser leveling, all the things that we have to do on the facility upkeep wise is a lot. So turfing might be a lot on the top end, that what we've discussed that, but throughout the next 10 years, we're going to have a lot better return with all the things that we have to do to upkeep these 10 fields. One of the other main projects that we're looking at is the turfing of the 3 competition middle school fields that we have. These pictures are of our 3 fields, and I want to first talk about Griffin Middle School field. You're thinking, my word, what is that? So we actually had a soccer game there that day. Middle school soccer was played on that field. That's just the way it is sometimes, and it's pretty rough for those kids to be on those fields because of just the grass and the things that we have to do to try to aerate and mow and keep up. But that was a big picture that we got sent a couple of years ago of, are we playing today? We're like, yes, you're playing today. Shadow Ridge Middle School is another field that gets used quite a bit from some outside rentals and some just our middle school football and soccer. It is constantly having to be babied and cared for it as well. And then the Harmon field also is another competition field that serves our middle school programs. And this picture was taken last week, and you can see that there are some raised grills, I guess, I don't know what those are, platforms that are a little bit, I mean, they're part of the drainage and the systems there, but it's just tough when we're having competitions there with 15 middle schools with football and baseball. And if we could turf those, it would serve several different groups better and safer.
So additional projects category, as we talked about, is the turf on the baseball, softball, the turf on the middle school practice fields, the turf 100-yard at each high school campus to be utilized by multiple groups is going to total $36.7 million.
All right, I think it's time that we turn it to Dr. Rapp. Thank you all for listening to all of our projects.
So, Ms. Maloney, one of the last things that you'll do with us before you go is provide a little bit of financial analysis given all of these projects. So why don't you go ahead and do that at this time?
Well, the good news is the district is in an incredible position because of the decisions made by the Board of Trustees across multiple bonds and many years, and through our work on CCA Local a couple years ago. With the recent authorization of $1.03 billion, the district has current capacity for authorization of a projected additional $700 million without raising the INS tax rate. One thing that I will say is when we were doing capacity scenarios for the One Vision Task Force, we were assuming an interest rate of 4.5%. And so in the most recent sale as of last week, we were more than 100 basis points lower than that. So all that does is on those scenarios is create more capacity. So that's good news. So with 3 or 4 sales and yearly debt management, and those scenarios also did not include our defeasance for this fiscal year. And so a lot of things that you have to think about there. So with 3 or 4 sales and yearly debt management practices, the district is in a position to ultimately probably lower the INS tax rate, even with additional authorization from voters.
So, Board, as you consider your options regarding these projects, I thought it was important for you to have background about what's the timeline for consideration when you consider next steps. And you can see there that February 16th would be the last day to order an election in order to put something on the May 4th, 2024 ballot. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Brosnick for discussion.
So we're going to do this first in 2 parts. First of all, questions regarding the subject matter that was covered in the presentation, and then we'll, after that, we will come back around and give direction in regards to the timeline and if we have any charges, if you will, for the One Vision Task Force, because we did say that we would bring them back, good or bad, after the election, to go over their work, and if we want to, I don't want to say the word employ, but if we still want to engage them going forward. So I will start with my left here with Ms. Lasan, if you have any questions regarding the presentation. Ms. Alcated?
I as well don't really have any comments or I don't have any questions. My comments are, we have heard this because, you guys presented this last year and through the task force, and thank you again for coming with even more details to it and explaining it, to a whole new level. The pictures, I think, really speak to what you're going after, and it really speaks to us as the board and the community as to why you are asking for these needs and these projects. So I do really appreciate that transparency, and I also, like Allison mentioned, that it is expensive to run our aquatic centers and our athletic fields as well, but we are kind of the premier place, like you mentioned. People want to come to Lewisville ISD and compete and use our aquatic centers and so forth, and we want to continue being the premier district for that. And there are definitely some facility needs, forest wood track, that I do know needs support and help. And so just once again, my comment to you guys is thank you for doing your due diligence and bringing it back to us, taking it to a whole new level, and keeping that transparency as to what it is, and just reminding us and everyone that it is not new construction. We are trying to maintain what we currently have and to keep it up. So thank you.
Ms. Sells? Dr. Bonner?
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. Really what we're sort of talking about tonight is a cultural issue around the district, right? And culture is how we define ourselves or how we're seen. And so if you know me at all, you'll hear me say that we're living in the golden age of Lewisville ISD in student academics and student athletics and fine arts and achievement. And that slide illustrated that tonight. I think the earliest date on there was the Lewisville High School State Football Championship in 1993. I think that's what that information dates to. So over the course of 30 years, we've seen great student success through athletic opportunities, fine arts opportunities, and academic opportunities. And those things have built what Lewisville is. They've built strong families and have strong families move in. In turn, that's built strong schools. This area is renowned for strong businesses and strong churches, and all those things build strong communities in southern Denton County. And, that's a cultural item, and it'll continue to build on itself as long as we take care of some things. But if you pull any one of those legs out, then I believe things start to crumble, and you absolutely have to take care of deferred maintenance or things start crumbling in your house. And we don't want them to crumble in our house. Now, having said all that, I do have a couple of questions, and I'll get to those in just a moment. I had a couple more things I wanted to think about. Y'all did a great job this evening on the presentation. Everything mentioned talks about or ties into our four cornerstones of student learning, student experience, resource stewardship, our community engagement. So well done. And that should appeal to people to show that it's an integral part of what we do here, and it's not just some little nice add-on that we do. So with that, a couple of questions, or things to run down, not questions necessarily. Agreed that slide about the natatorium showed great community involvement, great statewide and national involvement. And cities will often illustrate how a convention center could help the community with increased hotel rooms and increases to restaurants and increased tax rate. If we could run some of that down and tie it to what goes through that natatorium or the natatoriums, that'd be good. It would give us some quantifiable information, quasi-quantifiable information that would make it appealing, maybe. I think the other thing that we ought to think about, to I think Catherine's point, is, well, what if? We're very fortunate to have facilities like the natatoria, I guess there's two of them, and five, count them five, one for each finger on your hand, football stadiums. Well, maybe the task force should talk about, what if we shrank and just did one natatorium? Well, which one would it be? And what would the impact of that be? And similarly, maybe we don't have five stadiums. Maybe we have three. And what would that look like? And what would all that imply, and what would that bring to the table with increased transportation, et cetera, et cetera? Because those stadiums, particularly, Jeff, you're 100% right. Those are learning areas. When band's out there, when athletics is out there, when field trips go out there for field day, that's a learning opportunity. But it's bigger than that. Unless you have an old town, that stadium is a community hub. Hebron, I see Jenny nodding, Hebron is not a town anymore, but that school is. That is the community hub out there. So if we're going to talk about, let's just reduce to 3 stadiums, well, I guess the Colony's out. Oh, wait, the Colony's out of luck? Well, that's a community hub there too. So we need to be real careful in what we ask for and what we do, because we're pulling some threads out of the culture if we're not careful. So I think that's all my questions. That's certainly all of my speech. I have a few questions I'll send to you, though, via email. Thank you.
Dr. Barker.
Well, I'll be a little less philosophical than my colleague, because he said all of it so wonderfully. A couple of more specific questions. One of them, which Dr. Bronner already brought up, I'm a swim mom, so I spend a lot of time at the West Side Aquatic Center, and I'm really proud when we host meets there, and when I go to other aquatic facilities, and I'm like, man, I wish we were back at West Side because it's so much better. But I am curious about what is that direct and, as Dr. Bowder was talking about, indirect revenue from those facilities. And I know that's not why we have the natatoriums, and I know that they're expensive and it in no way would offset the operating costs, but I'd want to know what that is, because that is a number that we can share with the community of what gets brought in by the use of those facilities. Also, my daughter's interested in water polo, having gone to a water polo game, but we were equally confused looking at the scoreboard, like, what is going on? And then you'll have to forgive me because I was definitely a nerd in high school, and athletics was not my first priority, but so I may be less versed. But when we host events like regional track meets or other events that are sponsored by other entities like UIL, is there a financial offset for us as a host when we do that?
So when we host UIL events, we charge groups a rental fee. All of those things go into the big pot, but we use our athletic budget to pay workers, officials. We do not recoup anything with the natatorium rentals, with swim meets, with any type of thing. It does go into our general fund, but as far as extracting all of that, it is a loss for us as athletics because we pay out from our budget, and whatever revenue is, it goes into the general. So we get it in a roundabout way, but we don't use it to pay for the event, if that makes sense, if that's what you're asking.
It is, thank you.
Okay.
I don't know yet if this would be useful or not, but I wonder if that's not an education point for our communities as well, that we are holding ourselves up as this beacon of athletic prowess, and it takes some sacrifice on our part. That may not be the right message, but it's just something that's rolling around in my mind. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was very well done.
Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam President. I think a lot of the points that I would have mentioned going last have already been said. I will say that thank you for the education on the natatorium, because I'm not a swim mom or, I'm not involved in any of that. But I do know that, Mackenzie, when she attended elementary school, she's been in swim lessons since, she was 2 or 3, because I didn't want to make the same mistake with me not being able to swim and having to take swim lessons as an adult. But I saw the importance of the swim safety. I think I never really understood that until I saw her talking about her classmates who had never been in water. And so I think that that's something very important to the community and very important to a certain part of the community, if you will, because not every parent can afford swim lessons. And so I always say it's a lot to operate, but I do understand, and maybe this is what Dr. Bonner mentioned from a cultural standpoint, we have what we have and the why behind it. With that, I did have questions when you mentioned that we host championships, how much we made. So I think you've heard that question already. What does that look like, and what's the financial impact of not hosting those events if something were to happen? I also wanted to know if we did make those updates, do we go out and recruit, or are we just tapped? Like, is there an additional space for revenue if now we have something bigger and better? Could we get more of those competitions or whatever, and what that financial impact would be to the district? Also, when you were going through the athletics, and I was not an athlete in school, in case anybody wanted to know, I was in the band, I was a drum major at my school, but everyone knows that I have an athlete who has run cross country, has done track and field, has done basketball, volleyball, soccer, all through the district. And again, I can see it probably better than a lot of people because she goes to school in a feeder pattern where kids, they weren't playing AU sports. She's been playing AU sports, since she was little. But this is their first foray into being able to play a team sport. And I think that's important when I look at certain feeder patterns within LISD. And I think they ought to have parity, and they ought to have better fields. I've been on some of these fields, they're not great at all. And this is something that we need to do, but I think the community, I feel like we need to do a better job if we go back out of education. I like the photos. I don't like them because it shows that we're in dire need of, of assistance. But I think we need to share that with the community this time. We need to let them know. We need to let them see things breaking apart and water pooling and the safety issues and exposed wires. That needs to be shared. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but we need to do more to educate, because I look at our population, and I'm just going to say population of voters. Typically, our population of voters are not the parents with the kids that are currently in school. Their kids have already graduated, they're older, they won't be moved by a lot of things that a parent would be moved by because we're in the thick of things. But I think if you educate them around safety issues, and this is not us wanting a brand new whatever it is, this is just maintenance because our schools were built 20 or 30 or whatever years ago. So I say if we go back out, we need to be intentional with the education and share some of the things we maybe didn't share the first time around athletics. Because some people heard athletics and they're like, I'm not doing that. So I think we have an opportunity there to do something different. My other, and I don't even know if I had a question. I did have a question on slide 35, but I'll send that question related to the LED lighting, and it may be around what Ms. Sells had already brought up. My question was on bullet point 3 on the authorization of $700 million, the capacity for $700 million. Are we saying we have a capacity for additional bonds of that amount? The $700 million?
Yes.
And then I wanted to know, I saw I almost want to say subtotals of how much everything costs. Was there a grand total, or am I just not understanding what the grand total? Sorry.
For the first portion, it was $65.15 million, and then the additional one would have been for the ask from the committee, and that was $36.7 million.
Okay, because when I was trying to add up sort of what was in the slide, and I wasn't sure that I got to the right amount, but I was trying to compare what we're asking for versus what we have the capacity for to see, what makes sense if we got down the road, and that's what we decided to do. Those were all of my questions and comments.
All right, well, it may or may not surprise you that I emailed Paige earlier, and I asked her what the revenue was from the natatoriums.
Yes, for fiscal year 23, the revenue for both natatoriums was about $800,000, so that would be about $300,000 on the east side and $500,000 at the West Side Aquatic Center. The expenses are coming in about $1.4 million, and $500,000 of that is for maintenance. So, you could see that the revenue is outweighing the maintenance expense by about $300,000. So, but the total expenses of running the operation at both the natatoriums exceeds the revenue that we're bringing in.
And would it be fair to say that cost of running them will only get higher if we don't do anything about it?
Oh, definitely, and especially with those huge, in the red, those items that Mr. Hughes talked about. We're really on limited time for some of those major systems, and that'll be a big price tag if we can't repair it.
And then I have a lovely inflation question for you, which was just for the $65.15 million for what I would call the first portion. What would the inflation rate be if we did nothing this year? What if we waited a year? What does that cost look like in a year?
We had some conversations today about that and started plugging into Mr. Feight's spreadsheet, and we were pretty much saying that a year is going to be 10%. So if you go from November 2023 to May of 2025, I mean, you're going about a year and a half on 65 million would be 15%.
No, 15%.
15% on that. So what would that be?
So we're looking like 10 million-ish.
Love
I mean,
math
in
on the fly.
my poor math without a calculator in front of me.
Yeah, 9, if you're only using the 65.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that one right now.
9 to 10.
So it'd be an additional 10 million if we were to wait a year for the same things.
Yes, ma'am.
not
Using the
including
the inflationary adjustments that we use.
And then I'll ask this of whomever wants to answer, which is, if we don't do anything, what does that look like for choices in the district?
Yeah, I think, as we talked about at the board meeting, the regular board meeting, you all are facing for fiscal year 24 about a $15 million deficit at this time. And so, you're looking at your M&O budget is overtaxed. And of course, as we talk about all the time, your M&O budget is paying for 84% staff cost. So when we talk about systems failing, there really is not money in the M&O budget to conduct repairs on these systems that we discussed tonight. And so really, as you talk about y'all's questions on the what ifs, we've been asked even after the November 7th elections, and I'm sure you have too, well, so you're still going to be able to replace the tennis court surface, right? And the answer to that is no. We actually, the money for those systems, for those athletics projects was in the bond election. And so there is not money in the maintenance and operations budget to take care of the projects that we've brought forward to you this evening. And therefore, you get to what Dr. Bonner said, which is you either shut down facilities entirely. I think about a question that Ms. Alcatab asked me about a crack that was brought to you at the Flower Mound High School Stadium. And the Flower Mound High School 20-year renovations, life cycle maintenance, and repair didn't pass. And so if that stadium becomes unoperational, you will have to close it down. If we cannot repair the natatoriums and conduct those, we will have to close those down. Those are our options. And so I think, we're to a pretty significant place when it comes to the what ifs, because the maintenance and operations budget is not able to sustain these type of sizable repairs.
My final question that I had, and it's kind of getting in the minutiae, but so if we don't replace the Colony softball field, what is the cost to turn it back to? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what's that cost to turn it back to turf? I don't expect you to have that answer because I did not email that to you earlier, but I think that's a cost then that we have to incur because we can't just let a field sit. So I think that has to kind of at least be discussed. So we will move on to phase 2, if you will. Please
Can I
do.
make one clarification? Earlier we spoke about shelter, right, for when we talked about a new locker room space for baseball and softball. These prices are not the typical ICC 500 storm shelter. Is not what I have in here. So will we provide a safe space for people to go to? Yes. It won't be the code required storm shelter that we are used to seeing on new construction projects. Just want to let you guys know if that's the route you'd like to go, I can certainly run those numbers.
When you're talking about shelter, you're talking more about lightning, I'm assuming, and
Yes, ma'am.
staying
Yes.
dry.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to make sure that,
Okay.
that everybody was.
Well, and I want to add too, I was just wanting for you guys to get a bigger picture of the space that we don't have and some of the needs that we have at games. So, and he is correct, it's not a tornado shelter, it is just a place that's within close proximity to that field that we don't have.
Yeah, please take cover. Next, this is our next opportunity to give direction and input. I'm going to start on my right, so I'll give you a little bit of a heads up to look at the timeline, to see if what you want to go back and ask the One Vision Task Force if they have an opinion on any of these items, if we want to bring it back. It is a tight timeline. I make no bones about that. But that is the timeline that we have in front of us. Our only opportunities to go back out to voters, I rechecked this today, is in May and November. We no longer have the ability, as we've had in the past, to call an election whenever we wanted. So this is the timeline that we have in front of us if we want to consider going out for a bond election in May. So, and we will need some direction for Dr. Rapp to take to the One Vision Task Force. It's kind of on that last page there, and anything that you want them to include. Do you want them to include the things that they recommended the last time? Are those off the table for you? Things of that nature. It's pretty broad. Ms. Taylor, you're up first.
I am in agreement with the next steps to go back to the task force. I would like them to, they did such great work last time, I would like them to put everything on the table. And I don't think that we purposely did not select some of the things that they did. We were, again, trying to be good stewards and think about what could pass when we decided, okay, what can we live without so that the bond package isn't as large. But I would like to see them bring everything back. And then, similar to what we did the last time, the board has the final say on what goes out.
Dr. Barker?
First of all, I'm really, really hopeful that none of our neighbors decide that they want to put out for a stadium in May. I think we really lost some ground because of some press around that. So I'm hopeful that a timeline like this would prevent that kind of overlap. And I think that education is really important, and understanding that, I mean, it was nearly on every slide here. We are not building new facilities with 20-year life cycle repairs or with these component repairs. So we've got to get that out into the community. I think that in terms of the One Vision Task Force, I would love to see them go back to that last step again, where, because they've already been through the description of these projects, with the exception of maybe some conversation around the alternatives to the indoor facility, which is new. But I think that allowing them that opportunity to vote and prioritize again around what is the most important to them, and then, like my colleague to my right, Ms. Taylor mentioned, bringing it back to us so that we can review that once more, gives us the information we need to go back out.
Dr. Bonner?
I agree with my colleagues on having the task force look at this information with a very judicious eye one more time. We'd be a disservice to our community if we didn't have those folks re-involved. And so I'm thinking that that's a very necessary step. The last date to call is February 16th. We happen to have a board meeting February 13th, so maybe if we could get that information by the end of January-ish, that'd give us a couple of swipes at it to discuss, and then if we did decide to pursue any further action, we'd be in a good position to do so. Thank you.
Ms. Sells?
Yes, I agree also. I think it's really important that we take it back out to the community members. To do anything else would be as if we had just done a switcheroo on them and grabbed it back and did not trust them. And I've always said that our community members and those involved in those committees, because most of us have sat on those all before, they are the ones that once they know and understand, and I think that the information, that the one issue that I had with when we went out in in November, my months are all messed up, in November was that it was so big that I think it was hard to get that information and that education out there. Many of us went out and did those meetings. Parents didn't show up. Community members didn't show up. And I think this being able to narrow it down, I think that we can really be able to define a message around just what we're doing with this. And I think that it'll be more impactful because the one thing that we are able to do now is, okay, we're bringing this back to you. Now, this is the what if. Because we have done our research this time. And so I think that it's really important that we do share even that information, that it's not just all puppy dogs and, you know, rainbows and stuff, that there could be a consequence. And I think that I am in agreement, and I hope, I didn't look at the calendar before this meeting, but we do have a workshop prior to that week. And so if we needed to hash back, but I'm also willing, and I don't know about my other colleagues, but if we need to do something additional, I'm willing to do that. I think that this is important for our community.
Thank you, Ms. Sells. Ms. Alcatab?
I share in everything that my colleagues have also said. I think that we created this task force for a reason. We want the community input. We want to have them look at all of the information and be able to evaluate it. And so I think we definitely do need to reconvene them in providing that information. And I do, you know, I said it earlier, education is very, very important. I think being very transparent with everyone and giving them all the detailed information as to what would happen or what are the situations, and showing them those pictures, showing them those images so that they can get that real picture. And just making sure that we are educating and really reaching out to all of those parents and students and community members who are affected by this. Because I have 4 children, and they are all athletes at different levels, and we've played on many fields, courts, everything. I know, but I need to make sure that the community also knows that, you know, the crack in the Flower Mound High School stadium that was found, if we can't fix that, we have to close it. And what disservice is that going to be doing to our families? You know, Dr. Bonner mentioned earlier, that's a pillar, it's a community pillar. It tears into that. And so I think by turning it back over to the task force and allowing them to go through it again, you know, and make those recommendations. And, you know, like Ms. Sell said, I'm willing, if we need to have other meetings, let's do it. Because this is very, very important to our district. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Alcatab. Ms. Lasan?
So yes, sure, absolutely, bring back the task force. Here's my concern about them, though. They already approved all this stuff, and I know that a lot of them were upset, you know, that they didn't pass or, you know, whatever. So I guess my main concern would be, you know, I think at one point, Dr. Rapp, we talked about some surveying of outside of the task force. I just kind of wondered if we had gotten any of those results yet, or if we had done that, or
Yeah, so next steps, so we had the meeting to create the questions for the I've been referring to it as exit polling.
Mm-hmm.
We have to turn those questions, finalize those questions, turn them over. We don't have the data yet because they have to then take the questions and do the surveying. So our goal is to get that to you all, though, in time to have that information before you would make a final decision about your timeline. But that's a little bit different on that front because that's going back and figuring out maybe what impacted the outcome.
Right, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of my only, I guess, do you see what I'm saying? It's like, we know that, I think for the most part, the task force was with us, was with y'all, shared, you know, understood, shared the information. For whatever reason, the message didn't make it out to the community at large, or else they would have passed. So there was a disconnect there, and so that's my concern, you know. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I don't know, the timing, all of the things, you know, like we talk about almost every meeting. Nobody has a crystal ball, so I don't know. But I definitely think we need all this stuff. I'm for it, of course, but anyway, I think there's just a lot of things that need to come out before we make a decision in February.
Thank you, Ms. Hassan. I do agree that the task force has kind of already put their stamp of approval on it, but perhaps they could give some insight as to why they don't think that it passed as well. I'm very grateful to the voters for passing Proposition A, which was the Vader, because without that, we'd be in a much worse position than we are. And to Dr. Bonner's point about the stadiums, we call Brian Basil Stadium our town hall at Hebron, because it's the only place where we all get together, because it's 5 different cities, one awesome high school. I would like for information to get back to the board before our work session that we have in February. So at that point, we would be able to, I think, have some good discussion about that. I agree with Ms. Sells that if we need to have a third meeting in February, then we should see about maybe just doing a placeholder for that right now. But it is amazing to me in the state of Texas, where a university is paying somebody over $90 million to leave their head football coaching job, that we are asking for less than that to support 49,000 students. So, if you have any booster friends, we are willing to accept donations on that front. I think that when you think back to high school, I certainly remember my favorite history teacher, but I remember more my cross-country coach and my volleyball coach and the experiences that I had with my fellow teammates and how it shaped me. And I think that I would not want to deny one student in this district that kind of opportunity to learn what teamwork is, to learn what failure is and how you fail as a team, and even sometimes how you fail as an individual. And I think that sports is one of those things that can really help define who you are and your character. So I think it is part of the overall education process that we provide, and the education that we provide here. It is truly whole child, if you will. Those are my things to go forward so that the board can have the opportunity to discuss them. I think we need to do what we do best in LISD, which is teach. And we need to teach our community why we need these things and what for, and what the cost will be. And I think that we also have an opportunity in looking at our capacity and seeing where the markets take us, that we could even perhaps lower that INS rate. So once again, just like we did with the Vader and lowering the tax rate from the previous year, we could have an opportunity to do that and provide facilities. So that is it. Do you have anything else, Dr. Rapp?
Just one last comment as for follow-up. In addition to convening the One Vision Task Force to provide an update about where we are on the propositions that passed, we will do as you all said tonight, which is update them about the things that didn't and get their feedback on those projects that they brought forward, and also use them as an opportunity to hear about their thoughts on what to do should you all decide to call for an election for May. And then we will be communicating out with various groups. We've identified those in partnership with you all in order to really talk about the what ifs. What did not pass, and how is that impacting their specific group, category, community? And we have those in process right now. And on those communications, we'll also include an application for people to apply to join. Because of the timeline that we're on for these decisions, those applications may not come back in the time span that we're going to reconvene the group that we met with, but we will definitely, as we start to meet with our coaches, and that's coming up next week, as we meet with the coaches of the sports that were impacted, or it might be this week, actually, yeah, starting tomorrow. It's on my calendar. I will be there. We will start getting names as well from them of people that we can also add on to the One Vision Task Force. But we will post haste after tonight, work on gathering the One Vision together, and work to get you some information about their thoughts on these projects moving forward. So thank you.
If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is 7:57. Have a pleasant evening.